we saw Qatar Energy shut off their LNG plants, which sent European gas prices up 50%. And earlier today, when you guys are all asleep, and this is the end of the day for me, the Saudis one of their major refineries got hit, and that's about 7% of the world's oil went through. So, Bob, let's talk about it. Energy, you're back, baby.
Thanks. So, for our audience here, when you said you're in the war zone, you're literally in the war zone. Tell everybody where you're at.
Yeah. So I'm in the United Arab Emirates. If we had a little map, I should have sent Jen the map. I'm definitely in the mix. Like I could probably swim to Iran from here.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I was here for work for an AI thing, nothing related to finance, or I guess technically a little bit, but like or any wanting to be in a war zone. And then I was a little complacent because we talked about it, and I think the market kind of knew that we'd have that Trump, they were talking about it, and there was a bunch of carrier groups and whatever. And I had a meeting on Saturday, so I stayed. And that morning I woke up, and basically here's my takeaway is that I knew when I heard missiles from my hotel explode that I was like, God damn it, like this is a different beast. And I think that basically the Iranians are kind of doing if you guys remember the movie Scarface, they're doing the Tony Montana strategy of just going out guns blazing with the hope that that will cause pressure on the U.S. by their allies or whatever are in the region to then step back. And so yeah, I saw the Fairmont get bombed by a drone like 1,000 meters from me. I saw a lot of missiles get intercepted, and as a boy from Wisconsin, it was my first war zone experience.
All right. Well, stay safe, and hopefully you can get out of there soon. But yeah, so on Friday we said that we could come back this week with some exciting or interesting developments, which is certainly what has occurred here. I think to the surprise to a lot of people that the U.S. and Israel decided to strike on Saturday at 8 a.m. And we had said on Friday that if there was some breakout of war, that oil could spike to $75, $80 a barrel. And, we're a little bit shy of that. WTI is right here around $70 a barrel. And of course, everyone knows that's because Iran's is blocking the Strait of Hormuz, and that scared everybody back. The insurance companies raising rates and tankers not wanting to try and even venture through the Strait of Hormuz. And as you pointed out, Iraq has shut down for now all of their LNG export capacity or operations. So, all the energy stocks up this morning, except for the gas names, interestingly, U.S. gas names, because as you pointed out, even though European natural gas prices, which are dependent on Middle East LNG, are up 50%, it really hasn't impacted the U.S. here, particularly given that we're a net LNG exporter and we export pretty much all that we can capacity-wise. And in the meantime, we're coming out of the winter into the shoulder period heading in the summer. So there's not a lot of upward pressure on U.S. natural gas prices, although obviously this is positive for any LNG exports and, as you pointed out, European gas. But as far as oil, clearly you, on the one hand, can argue that there's no way that the U.S. and Israel is going to allow Iran to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed. But in the meantime, obviously, Iran has some fire capability to continue to shoot missiles and continue to cause fear that no one wants to risk going through the Strait of Hormuz. And as I said, the insurance companies have boosted their rates 50, 100%. So everybody's holding back for now, waiting to see how this gets resolved or settled. Trump said that this is going to last 4 weeks. The problem is that when you look at what's trying to go on here, and clearly the U.S. and Israel are trying to push for regime change, you've got a far left radical ruling party in Iran, although Khomeini is dead, that they're not in this for sort of a resolution or peaceful coexistence. For them, this is a religious war. I mean, they're in it to the death. And so that's why, as you pointed out, they're going out guns blazing, Tony Montana style, is that we got here because in the negotiations, at one point, the U.S. offered to provide them fuel-grade uranium forever, just as long as they would stop their enrichment. And the one sticking point was they would not halt enrichment. Why? Because they don't want to ever give up the possibility or the capability to make a nuclear weapon. And so that was sort of the breaking point where I believe the U.S. and Israel said, look, they're never going to give in on this. Clearly, we know what their objective is. The Iranian constitution does not directly call for the annihilation of Israel, but it calls for direct opposition to the Zionist regime or occupiers of Palestine. So this is something, again, I believe if the far left radical Islamic party remains in power in any form or fashion, they're in it to the death. And so that's why you've got to, US and Israel believe they have to totally, completely annihilate any military capability whatsoever in Iran and hope that then there's the people of Iran are able to affect the regime change that's more friendly, more democratic to the Western world. So my point is that this is not going to be over in a few days. And I think that, as Trump said, this is going to take 4 weeks, that's very likely the case, which is going to keep the markets on edge, which means that oil's not pulling back to $60 a barrel again anytime soon. Net, this is all positive for the energy stocks. They're going to be volatile. They're going to jump around. But as we pointed out a week ago, on the E&P side, the most leveraged names to oil that you want to stick in or own are CNQ, Apache, Oxy, Devon, EOG, and then Chevron and Exxon on the integrated oil side. We're not selling anything. We're not writing covered calls here. We're just sticking with these names and seeing how this plays out. But again, I think this is something where you're going to see oil hold up here $70 a barrel or higher for weeks.
Can I ask a question, Bob? What do you think
Yeah,
happens longer term if this is successful and we do see regime change, a free Iran, an Iran that doesn't need to have the sanctions that the U.S. has on it for decades now, right? That's 12% of the world's oil supply. What structurally happens if that oil supply comes into the, of course it's going into the market now, but it's going in a restricted way? What happens if it goes in an unrestricted way?
Well, that's long term, obviously puts pressure on oil prices. That is a scenario where it's going to take a long time to rebuild or sort of put the infrastructure in place, although oil's flowing today. Put in the infrastructure to flow a lot more oil. It's not Venezuela in that everything's being held together by duct tape, but it's a situation where ultimately there will be more free flowing oil out of Iran, which should then put pressure on oil prices to put them back closer to $60 a barrel. Then it becomes a matter of, again, OPEC, what they want to do as far as how much production they continue to restrain or how much of the curtailed production they continue to put back in the market and how they try to manage the global oil price.